first speaker that I'm very excited to announce is Julia Pitcher. She is the Director of U.S. State Government Relations for the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research. She joined the foundation in late 2021, where she is leading the first state government affairs office on behalf of the Parkinson's community. Julia's professional experience representing a wide range of interest is complemented by a Juris Doctorate from the University of Baltimore School of Law. Julia is a perceptive and performance-driven government affairs leader with a solid background of experience in lobbying, public policy, negotiations, and strategic planning. She leverages progressive political experience and broad-based interpersonal and communication skills to build rapport and foster relationships with elected officials and top-tier politicians. The combination of her extensive knowledge and education makes her an outstanding advocate for her clients and organizations. Julia is a compassionate advocate and educator, and we are so lucky to have her here with us today. Please give a giant welcome for our opening speaker, Julia Pitcher.
Good morning, everyone. This is such a beautiful morning out in the Rockies, and there are so many of us here in this room, and I am so happy to be part of this today. First, I want to thank Jody and Annie for inviting me out today. This has been a wonderful second trip to Denver. I absolutely love your city, your state, and I would love to come out more often, so please have me back after this, okay? This is advocacy right here. You are advocacy. You are here in this room. You are joining together. You're breaking bread over common interests, need for support, talking to each other, shared lived experiences. This is advocacy right here. It is the power of 100 or 400 in this room times one, because the more people together, the more powerful you can be. And that is what you can do right here, right now. If every single person in this room contacted a lawmaker on the phone or email or in Congress, do you think about how far we can get? So I want you to keep that in the back of your head as I go through a few things today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the foundation is doing, what we're doing in the future, and how we can all become an advocate in state and local and federal government to affect change. And I'm here on behalf of the Michael J. Fox Foundation, but it's not just about the Fox Foundation, it is about everyone. It is about the entire Parkinson's community as caretakers, siblings, spouses, and people living with Parkinson's, because this is you, and you are important. Oh, they told me to go this way. There we go. So the Michael J. Fox Foundation, we've been around for 23 years, and we have been dedicated to researching and funding science and better therapies for a cure for Parkinson's. And we're not there yet, but we want to be. And that is, again, why we're all here today. And a couple years ago, just a little bit before COVID, we started an advocacy organization. And some of you remember it as PAN, Parkinson's Advocacy Network. And then it came together under the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And we are now a laser-focused, very small office, but what we are doing is going to have ripple effects for years to come, because it is time to put Parkinson's on the map for lawmakers on the national and the state level. So we have two policy tenets. We are advancing research towards a cure and how that relates to policy or changes in laws or regulations or funding. And we support people living with Parkinson's and their families. And that can also be new policies, better budgets for local care, transportation, Medicaid, Medicare, commercial insurance, better access to care. There's lots and lots of ways that we can be involved. So those are our research and policy tenets that we are working on. Big green button, thank you. I want to tell you a little bit about our team. Just so you know, some of you remember Ted Thompson. He's our boss. He's our senior vice president. And we're a very small and mighty team. And you know our federal folks. Some of you, I've been talking to many of you outside in the ladies' room, getting coffee. This is how we talk. We get things done around here. And some of you have been meeting with our federal team and congressional representatives. And for that, I thank you, and I'm so glad. And those are the folks that you've been working with. We have a brand new person on our team. Her name is Amy Becker. She is the Director of Advocacy. And I wish that she could have come out with me today to be here because she is just a powerhouse and she has some new ideas. She's been on our team for 8 weeks and she wants to revolutionize how we do advocacy and using digital communications and being involved, not just in person, but online, and what can work for the community and how you can use your voice going forward. So I'm hoping to introduce you all to her soon. Maybe we'll all do a little joint webinar together. And then there's me. I started in the end of 2021, brand new organization, brand new office, and I now have a colleague. His name is Zach. He is based in New York City. And our goal in 2024, as we hit our second year working together, is we hope to regionalize. I had a couple questions. Somebody said, hey, do you have an office out here? And I said, no, but that's my goal. So it's in our annual planning. We're hoping to have a very robust regional state office out in the Pacific Northwest, the Rocky area, the Southwest area. We're trying to figure out where people will be, and that will be wonderful. And we want to be collaborative with all Parkinson's organizations together. We want to do the hard work. We're going to put the bones together. We're going to do the logistics, and then we want to give you the resources to go out there together. So I want to talk a little bit about our legislative priorities. However, they're not just our legislative priorities, they're everyone's legislative priorities. And I really want to talk about those 3 orange circles at the top, because that's really what we're here to talk about today, is advocacy. What is advocacy? Advocacy is, again, you hear your voice and talking to folks. We want to be able to recruit, train, engage people in order to keep talking and being able to talk to folks. Did you know that it takes 7 meetings with a lawmaker for them to really feel like you have developed a relationship with them? That's 7 times. That's not a lot, but it is a lot. And if you think about how many people are in Congress and how many people are in state legislatures, that's hundreds and hundreds of people. And then there are other organizations and folks doing the same thing. So that's why it's important to what we call 7 touches. You need to continuously stay involved. And you'll get to hear a little bit more about that in just a minute. But I wanted to lay out what our pillars are right now. And those legislative priorities, as many of you have known, are on the federal side, the National Plan to End Parkinson's, which is the first ever nonpartisan, bipartisan effort to work on a singularly dedicated Parkinson's bill in Congress. Now, where are we on that? I'm going to get to that in a second. We also have a federal priority on long-term care and access to care, veterans and PODREX, other areas. So we are really working in DC to effect change and funding going forward. And we have lots of things that we can get involved on that. And on the state side, some of you remember that when we were here last year, we were working towards a bill on a state registry for the Parkinson's community in Colorado. We weren't successful, but where we were successful is that we had a huge in-person event that had so many of you there, and we made so many inroads in getting to know lawmakers. Now, we have elections, and people are going to change over, and staff is going to change over. So those 7 touches, you have to do it again and again and again. So coming back to that advocacy, we're not all going to be around forever, and there are things that we can't do, won't do, are not comfortable doing, but that's why we want to meet you where you are. And that's why we work so closely with PAR and together in the community. If you're comfortable sending emails and you love data and fact sheets and that's what you want to do, great. If you are somebody who loves to talk on the phone and you want to pick up the phone, I love that. And if you are somebody that wants to hustle in the hallways and flag down lawmakers in the state capitol, we got something for you too. So that's what advocacy is all about, is doing what you're comfortable with, being part of things. If you're a behind the scenes person, if you're a front of the scenes person, if you're somebody who loves to write and write op-eds and get people jazzed up and call the local media, that's what it's about. It's about cutting through the noise and making sure that we can all, again, have a voice. So with that, where is our national plan? Well, there's a small crisis going on in DC, which was hoping that we would have it resolved. It's not. It's known as the shutdown. So the government is looking to shut down again, and I think we're at a point post-COVID where if Chessie the sea monster came out of the ocean, we wouldn't really think much of it at this point on our bingo cards. There's all sorts of things happening. We're not surprised anymore. Let's just say that. Ever since 2020, it's been a little bit of a rocket ship of what the ups and downs are. But yes, we are looming with a government shutdown, and what is that going to do to the national plan and for Parkinson's patients? Well, I do want to assure you, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security continues. I want you to know that. It is going to be very difficult for federal workers that are going to be furloughed, and I don't want to make light of this. There are going to be people that are going to be having to show up for work as essential workers and not getting paid until they get back pay. There are some, particularly in janitorial staff that work for Congress, that are not going to get pay and not going to get back pay. You have a lot of staffers that are not going to get paid, but Congress will. So that is what we're facing. So right now with the national plan, I don't want it to sound like we're on a downer, but we are in a little bit of a holding pattern. That being said, we are at a point where we have almost 1 in 4 of the entire United States Congress as sponsors. That's 25%. That's huge. We have now 123, this is as of 2 days ago when I sent my presentation in, congressional representatives on this bill. We have 19, and I do think we actually got up to 21 this week, I have to verify that, US senators. And the bills are being heard, but they are going to be held right now. So what we are doing is, again, that touch. We still need calls to Congress. We still need emails to Congress and US senators. Those of you who have met with them, come back to us and ask us for another meeting. We will get you those meetings with your local folks. But it is going to move forward. We just don't know when. I wanted to say we're going to be having votes and committee markups in October. That timeline might be closer to November. We really are trying to push for this to be passed by the end of this calendar year so that we can go into 2024 and then start to work on appropriations for this. Now, I also want to state that we have a ton of materials. Somebody asked me about some of our talking points on this. We can easily download them, and we want to make sure that our information gets out to you and that you can have it. Our information is not gatekept. Again, we're the dorky political nerds that love to sit there and write this up, and we want you guys to take it and run with it. So we were writing the talking points, and you can have them, and you can walk out and email your folks and make sure that you know all of the stats on the national plan. And where are we in Colorado and other states? So our small team of 2 this year were very active across the country. We had state registry bills. That was our priority this last year. And that stems from the National Neurological Condition Surveillance System, which is a very long mouthful. You don't need to remember it all. And their pilot is Parkinson's and MS. And the goal is to get patient population data into the system to create a larger scale hub at the national level in order to do better, more directed, geo-targeted research. Well, how do they get it? Well, the federal government just doesn't show up at states and say, hey, give me some data. We have to go tell states, hey, give us some data, and then send it up to the feds. So we targeted 10 states this year, and we succeeded in 5. And that is huge. I mean, if this was high school, that's a 50-50%, and I'd probably be failing the class. But in politics, let me tell you, that's a win. That's a huge win. And even when a bill doesn't get passed, the mere fact of getting something introduced and working with a legislative sponsor in a state, again, develops that relationship. That person becomes a champion for you. It isn't a loss because you can come back. You can meet with staffing and you can meet with the committee. Maybe you had a committee hearing and testified and it didn't get through, but you got to see those 20, 25 people. That's still progress. You're still moving the ball down the road. So we did have 5 wins this year and a couple that did not make it across the line, and that is okay. We may be coming back in 2024 in some of these states. 2 are doing what's considered carryovers. The state of New York and the state of Massachusetts, whenever they end their session, every other year you can carry over legislation and you basically pick up where you left off. Most states don't do that, so we have an opportunity where we're in the in-between stage right now out there. So those 2 will carry over and the other ones we will start again. But we've somewhat shifted our policies a little bit. We've been starting to talk to folks on the ground about what they want to hear and what they want to do, because the registry concept is incredibly important for research. But is it going to make an impact for Parkinson's patients right now? No, it is not. And I fully admit that, because sometimes policies are immediate effect for patients and families, and sometimes it's a longer-term goal. So going into 2024, we're going to be pulling together more state research funding in various states. What we want to do is start to create Parkinson's funds. And what we want to do is link the legislature to local universities and or through the direct budget line item appropriations through the health departments, et cetera, to create large-scale funds. And I'm not talking about just a couple $100,000. I'm talking about millions, because we need that. We need millions infused into Parkinson's research and access for care in states. So we are going to be coming forward with more information on that very, very soon. You're going to listen in for that later. We're going to still work on registries, and then we are also going to be working on genetic testing discrimination protections. There is more and more information coming out that folks are being discriminated against when you go for various long-term care insurance. So on a federal level, you cannot be discriminated against for a chronic condition for health care insurance. We all know that, and that was protected in the Affordable Care Act. However, there are loopholes on state sides. There's no federal protection and there's no state protection against long-term care, disability, and life insurance. And what does that mean? That means you can go ask to get your life insurance policy, and then they say, yes, I do have a Parkinson's diagnosis, and they can jack your premiums up, they can restrict some of the options, or they could flat out deny you at all. And that is absolutely unacceptable in this day and age. So we have been working with other organizations. We have been collaborating with ALS, MS, and other, I'm trying to think of a couple others. There's a few others that we're working on pulling together a coalition to be able to go into states and work on this. There were 11 bills this session. They were a bit of a patchwork. Some states went after the trifecta, and some went after one or two. Only one passed in the state of Tennessee, and it was only for life insurance. So it's a good win, but is it enough? No, it's absolutely not enough. So we believe that we need to gather our friends, gather our other, organizations, and lobby together to do this. Because as many of us have been talking in this room, there are more and more folks being diagnosed with Parkinson's at a younger and younger age. And we all know young folks don't always think about the future. I mean, heck, I'm in my 40s and I still got to get my life insurance and stuff together myself. And so we need to think about that, and you don't want that to come back and be, an inability to be able to plan for the future. And this isn't just a Parkinson's issue. What was really fascinating to me, and I just like to share something personal, is that, because again, advocacy is personal. When I found out from a neurologist how this happens, is that she has actually encouraged patients to go ahead and make sure that they get their insurance first before getting the final on-record medical diagnosis, because she had a 27-year-old female pregnant patient with Parkinson's. Who is thinking about life insurance and disability insurance at 27 years old? And I thought to myself, I said, whoa, that's interesting. I said, genetic testing. I said, well, I had babies in my late 30s, and I had genetic testing because I was considered old having babies. And she said, absolutely, that could be used against you later. And I said, I had no idea. So this isn't just Parkinson's, this is a lot of folks, that there's some discrimination policies happening that's out there. So that is one of the reasons why we're so keen on focusing on collaborating together on this issue, because I guarantee you most folks on the state level do not realize that there is this massive loophole and that we should be working together on that. So we're going to be working on that going forward. And last, our big news, biomarkers. As you know, we had one of the greatest discoveries earlier this year related to finding a biomarker for Parkinson's. And I'm not going to get into all the nitty-gritty on that. I know you've all seen the news, and it's been incredible. So what we have been working on is we have partnered with the American Cancer Society, And they have been working on biomarker bills in close to about 20 states this last year, and they plan on continuing this going forward because they saw the value. There are cancer biomarkers, and there is access to them when it comes to healthcare insurance. And we want to make sure that we're included in that. So before we even knew that discovery was coming, our team was lobbying as a partner in that and saying, you know, one day when our Parkinson's patients have a biomarker that's commercially accessible, yeah, we want insurance to cover that. Absolutely. Because on the federal side, it'll go to a Medicare determination review, but not on states. States, they're whack-a-mole. And you know how that goes. What is happening in one state, you move to another state, your coverage is completely different, and you know that as well as I do. So we want to make sure that it's fully covered once it's commercially available. And lo and behold, that's been happening. So we have had success, and it's passed in about a dozen states this year, and we'll be going forward with that. So we are not the lead on the actual bill, but this is why partnership is so important, and we're going to be a large-scale national partner on that going forward. Big button. Okay. So how do we all get it done? Right? So state legislatures, they're pretty simple, but they like to make things complicated. You know, it's politicians. So states, a lot of folks don't realize this, but one of the reasons why states meet in the middle of the winter is because hundreds of years ago, when our founding fathers started this country, they were farmers. And what grows in the wintertime? Nothing. So they would take horse and buggy, and they'd go to the new state capitol, which was probably one building, and they'd meet, and they'd say, what do we want to do for our newly created colony, then state? And that is how state lawmakers came together and how state constitutions created ongoing legislative times. And each state is a little bit different, but generally about 45 every single year meet starting right after New Year's. It's usually the first Tuesday after New Year's, first or second Tuesday after New Year's. And they meet for anywhere between 30, 60, 90 to 180 days. And some are very quick, and some meet every year. Some meet to do budget and policy. Some meet just to do budget and policy the following year. And then there's 4 or 5 states that meet every other year. And that's what we just have to know these things in our head of when we're going. So what is the important time? Now is the important time. Summer, fall. Your lawmakers are typically part-time, and you probably see them at the pool or in church or at the grocery store. They're real people, and you can go up and see them, and you can talk to them, and you can say, hey, you're a legislator, right? Great. I want to talk and have coffee with you. Did you know, are you working on Parkinson's issues? Did you know somebody with Parkinson's? Because I'm somebody with Parkinson's, and I'd like to talk to you about it. So you can corner them and talk to them because they are your you are their constituents. So it all starts with a concept, and it all moves through to be able to go through from a bill concept to a committee hearing. It's marked up. It's a pretty transparent process when it comes to states. On the federal level, yes, what goes on in DC is absolutely wild. And yes, I live 45 minutes outside the Beltway, and even I have a hard time keeping up what's going on in DC. But on a state level, the states are incubators, and states are where you can really get a lot done that can also influence federal legislation. So more things happening on a state side gets Congress to act. Sometimes you need federal engagement in order to do something on the states. There's certain things we can't do in states that are governed by federal law that you just can't do on a state level. And sometimes it's a court case up to the Supreme Court, and then that becomes the law of the land. So we love that. So generally speaking, in states, I want you all to remember that the summer and the fall as advocates is so important because this is when lawmakers are accessible. They are around town. They're holding town halls. There are elections, and they want to hear from you. You can go online. You can participate. And I really want to encourage you to do that going forward. So the lawmaking process is pretty simple, but know that by January, they are in rapid-fire race card mode, and they are running to get the budget passed and all of these bills passed. So their time is very limited. So the more times you can meet with them in the summer and the fall, and then again, when you come back, they'll be like, I remember you. That's right, Jody, you came to see me last year. Oh, that's right, we saw each other this summer, right? How are the kids doing? How's this? How's that? That's what it's all about, and that's what makes it personal. And that's what I want to get into using your voice today. Using your voice. I'm a mom of 2 young kids who also had a soccer game this morning. I like funky glasses. By the way, these are from Zenni, for those who are asking. And I love getting a good deal. I don't like paying full price for anything. Now, what did I just do? I just created a connection because somebody else might like funky glasses. Somebody else might have 2 kids who play soccer. Somebody else might like bargain deals like I do. That's how you get to know folks. So you walk into a lawmaker's room, or you talk to them on a Zoom call, or you just email them. You got to connect. What's your hook? Your hook is Parkinson's. Everybody's got a hook, whether it's environmental advocacy, whether it's animal rights, whether it's LGBTQ rights, anything is a hook. What is your passion and what is your hook? Well, today, here it is, it's Parkinson's. And that's what you want to hook. So you meet with them, you say, hi, I'm a person with Parkinson's, or I am a caretaker for somebody with Parkinson's, and I want to tell you a little bit about that. And you use that voice, you narrow down your story. You tell them what they need to know. And then you say, tell me about yourself. And you get to know a lot about somebody who is elected because they're humans and they want to tell you. And I guarantee you, they're going to have a connection to Parkinson's. Because like we said, if you know one Parkinson's patients, you've met one, but you know that somebody else is connected. And that is something that we have found going forward, is that when you just connect with somebody on a personal, granular level, it could be the color green, your favorite color. It could be a favorite sport. It could be a traumatic experience. Anything is a connection, and that's where you start. And then you do ask them, have you ever met anybody with Parkinson's? Oh, you have not. Well, let me tell you a little bit about my story. And that's why engaging is so important, because I can sit here and I can do all the laws on the planet, but nothing is better than your voice. And how can you do that? There are so many tools. I have to say the one good thing that came out of COVID is the fact that things are so much more accessible now in the advocacy space. Because I remember what it was like pre-COVID, where I had to try and get patient advocates or other clients to take a full day off work and only be able to come down to the legislature in the Capitol Hill. And then what happens if they're stuck filibustering on something? And my patient advocate or my client is sitting there and they're waiting and waiting for hours and they don't even get to speak to the person. Well, guess what? That's what's so great now about post-COVID life is they want to do meetings with you online. They're going to set up a time. You talk to their offices and they'll say, yeah, absolutely. Senator Smith he does, constituent meetings, or he's got Tuesdays. What time works for you? You book a 20-minute slot on Zoom. Boom, you are in. That is fantastic. You don't have to get in the car and drive several hours into the Capitol, park, spend $20 on parking, hoof it up those stairs, and get into the Capitol to do it. You can do it online. And I was talking earlier to Tracy about digital advocacy and using Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. You don't have to be a master at that, but a lot of the younger folks that are elected are very, very active online. So if you're not comfortable with it, go find a neighbor or a friend or a grandkid and ask them to show you, but also just watch what they're doing, follow them, comment on things, see what they're posting, and also follow us because we're posting a lot as well, and you're more than welcome to retweet, and we can talk about it together, and we love to tag each other on it. Also, don't be afraid to be part of a bill hearing. A bill hearing is It's more exciting than it is on C-SPAN, I promise. It really is your moment to shine. So you've been meeting with lawmakers. You've gone out, you've talked about, the Parkinson's need in the state of Colorado, and then you show up and there's a bill hearing. It could be for biomarkers. It could be for access to care issues. And maybe it's not just one of our bills, but going there and saying, hey, remember me? Hi, I'm Julia. I met with you last year, and I'm here to tell about my little story. And you're probably only going to get about 3 to 5 minutes, but again, that's so impactful. So if something that you're comfortable doing and you love doing things like this in person, we want you to do that, and we want you to share your story on multiple bills. And I don't care who gets the credit at the end of the day, we all are doing this for the community because what you're doing now affects future generations when it comes to laws that are passed. And that's truly, in the end, what the advocacy is about. So if there is a bill that is going to benefit the Parkinson's community, whether it is an access to care issue or not, and you feel comfortable going to testify at that bill hearing, we can help you. PAR, Michael J. Fox Foundation, all of us, we can help get you ready for that and go. And a lot of them are now online too, so that's also another fantastic opportunity, is the fact that we can testify online, and I can testify across state lines. I don't always have to fly out to testify, which is wonderful because, again, it brings us that community together. And last, I always recommend meeting in person in a space. I mean, nothing is better than what I'm seeing right here. And my goodness, if I could get this many people to show up at a lobby day for Parkinson's, oh, that would be incredible. I mean, just seeing all of your faces walking the halls of the Capitol, oh, it gives me chills just thinking about it right now. So, poor Jody's looking at me like, please don't make me do this yet. We will need a lot of volunteers is what I'm saying if we're gonna do it again. But what I'm saying is, look at how many of you came out today to learn, to be invigorated, to be energized and educate. Now, what I want you to do is take that and go forward and where to go next. But I don't want to leave you without something that you feel comfortable with. So what we're doing is we're creating action centers. And if you go on to the michaeljfox.org/advocacy, and it's all going to be at the end, don't worry, you don't have to write it all down. All of our materials are available online, and we are going to give them to PAR so that they can email them out to everybody who's been here today. We have a Parkinson's network that we've started. We have a Facebook page or a group that you can join to share information. And we are starting a Share Your Story campaign so that we want you all to log into our portal, share your story, tell us a little bit about you, what makes your Parkinson's something that we want to talk about, or your caretaking, or your experience as a child who grew up with a parent with Parkinson's. Anything is important, and we're gonna pull these together via different subject matters, and then we're going to reach back out and say, hey, we're working on this push in this area, and your story resonated with us. Can we use it, or can you come and meet with us on this other subject matter that we're talking about? We're also adding, now that we have an Amy, our Director of Advocacy, we're going to really revamp a lot more of our webinars and our advocacy, and I believe that we are also working on bringing back what was known as the Policy Forum and the fly-ins at some point. We're working on bringing that back in a post-COVID world, but we're also looking at digitizing as much as we can because, again, we're not gatekeeping anything. We want you to be able to go out and do the incredible work that you're already doing by coming here today. Let's see. So what do you need? And I guess that's the biggest thing I like, people walk out of here and I'm like, well, what the heck am I supposed to do next? Well, that is, you need to know, obviously, where you live and what city it is and district. And when I say that, when I put that together, I should have said district. You need to know your district. And a lot of times that is on your voter registration card, if you have it, or you can call the local Board of Elections and say, hey, I live on Main Street, et cetera. I just can't remember what district I am because it changes. And there's redistricting, and you got to remember your local one and your school district and your congressional district, and they can give you all that. They can print it out for you, or they can just line it up. And that's where you start because that's what lawmakers are keying in on. You call up and they say, I live in District 15. Boom, instantly their staff knows that you are their person, your voter, your potential donor, et cetera. But if you're outside of the district, they're like, okay, I'm going to hear your information, and they'll probably pass it on to somebody else because, again, they want to hear from you granularly, your people. And from there, you also want to talk about your connection to PD, what I just said earlier. And then you need to know who your representatives are, and that is also on your either voter registration card or call the Board of Elections. It is also an easy Google search. Every state has a Find Your Lawmaker website, and then we also have it on our Action Center as well. We've built out a type in your address and get that as well, so we wanted to keep that as a resource. And then your comfort level. Again, we talked about that a lot, and I keep reiterating that because I want folks to not walk out of this room and feel like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm not qualified to do this. You are, and you're more capable of all of this than you think you are. Change starts at the table that you sit at today, and that you're talking together and you're supporting each other, and you buddy up, and you say, hey, I'm gonna go to the Capitol and I'm gonna meet with a couple of folks. You wanna go with me? Great, power by numbers, and you talk about it, you support each other, you drive each other there, just like you will when it comes time to vote. You drive each other to the voting box and make sure that you get it done. And that's why we wanna support each other going forward. And with that, I'm gonna leave a little bit of time for questions, because I know I talked fast from the East Coast and I got through a lot of materials. So thank you all so much for being here today to start our day off with advocacy as a whole, how laws get done, and what you can do going forward. So with that, I have a couple of minutes left to answer some questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I knew Julia would do an amazing job at talking about advocacy at the federal and state level. And just a really quick plug, we had a small working committee trying to get the state PD registry passed in last session. And as Julia mentioned, we weren't able to get it passed, but we have not given up. So during lunch, there'll be a quick little powwow at this front table. So if anybody's interested in getting involved, we'd like our little committee to become a bigger committee. Please come up and we'll get your name and information and include you as we figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to tackle that next year.
How about this? Take the notepads, write your name and your email down, and then bring it to us.
Even more
And we're going to
efficient.
put a list together.
All right, so we do have some time for questions. Please raise your hand and we will get a mic to you so that everybody can hear your question. You've got Nikki here and Annie in the back. And please keep your questions short because we want to be able to answer as many as possible. So, go ahead.
What are the major components to the federal legislation? What are the major things we want to talk about?
I'm so glad you asked that question. Thank you. The federal legislation is going to pull together all of the key federal agencies, aging, health, veterans, DOD, et cetera, to bring together an advisory board. And then that advisory board is going to come up with recommendations. And then as part of that, we are also going to have a patient council. Somebody will be federally appointed. Several will be federally appointed. The goal then lays out ways that the federal agencies can collaborate with research institutions and researchers, NIH being one of them, and how can we better go forward. So what we're taking a plan out of is what Alzheimer's did in the 90s, is they came up with a national plan. And I don't, pretend that we're not doing something similar, and that they come up with a national plan with the national folks at the table, and then they partner with research institutions and then the community, and we see what do we need to do going forward. So this first bill does not have funding attached, so it's the basic bones of getting that started. So if we get it passed this year, the next step is getting it funded, which is going to be the hardest part, is getting the feds to put money together to then look at what this advisory council wants to say. They say, we need more money here, we need more money here, or this is what we need to study next, because we can't all just do it ourselves. So it's time for the feds to step up and do it for the community. So those are the three tenets, is the advisory council, researchers, community, come up with the plan, and I forget the timeline. I want to say that it'll be in phases of like each 24 months, something to then pull from the federal government to stay momentous as they go. Hope that answers your question. Thanks.
And then Julia, we had one over here.
Hi.
What states have been heroes in this advocacy, and what do they have in common that might be productive for our advocacy?
Ooh, I'm so glad you brought that up. So what it really does take is a dedicated group of individuals. So when you have a volunteer that is willing to put together a little pod, a little work group, and be a point of contact for others, that really, really helps. Somebody who becomes familiar with the legislative process, you don't have to know everything, but just understanding that there is a process and we can train on that. One of the biggest successes has also been partnering with physicians and other healthcare groups. So taking the patient volunteers, and then we've partnered with a few physicians. For some reason, lawmakers love to hear from doctors. I think it's fantastic. They listen to them and they listen to their patients. So putting 2 or 3 people together on a panel or in a group that includes patients and providers is an excellent way for lawmakers to hear what the needs are. And then honestly, another thing is resources. Something that we're working on is also we're trying to be able to build out in order to have legislative consultants in several states. Lobbyists are not a bad thing. We do not have scales, I promise. I've been a lobbyist for 20-some years, and we really do work at the granular level and working with lawmakers and knowing the intel. So that's something that we're trying to work towards, is being able to add more consultants so that we can all share in direct intel on that level. So I hope that helps.
All right, we have another question right here.
Aha.
Thank you. So do you also advocate to I guess you'd say private or commercial, like foundations that have deep pockets, so just arbitrarily pick Bill Gates Foundation, and how, like, do you advocate towards them to get funding or to have something set up to, you know, to fund research, or are you exclusively focused on the government? If you do approach these other foundations, do you have a different advocacy model? How is it simply a matter of writing grant proposals, or do you, is there a place for like individuals to add their voice to that?
Thank you for that. So that is a different area of the Michael J. Fox Foundation. So we do have folks that are partnering with other organizations that have larger dollars to fund research, and that's something that we have been doing. I don't know if you all know the numbers, but since our inception, we have funded $2.5 billion in research towards Parkinson's since 2000. But we will like the government to take on a little bit of that because of the fact that it has not been increased in 25 years. So I will do a little comparison. 25 years ago, actually closer to 30 now, in the early 90s, when Reagan came forward with his Alzheimer's diagnosis, federal funding tripled for Alzheimer's overnight. And that hasn't happened for Parkinson's. And now the Alzheimer's Foundation, or Alzheimer's as a disease state, receives over $3 billion from the federal government for research. So we funded 2.5 over 20 years, but the federal government's giving Alzheimer's $3 billion a year towards research. And we are the second fastest growing neurodegenerative disease under Alzheimer's. So that's one of the reasons why we feel that it's time for the government to step up and do more research, and then we can shift our dollars into something that might be a little bit more flexible, that things that we can do as a foundation. So it is a little bit different advocacy. So there's that partnership, but then on the advocacy side, what we're doing is we're doing both. So if there are individuals who want to give money towards a policy initiative or something internally, yes, of course that can be happening, or they want to fund it towards a funding piece. But yeah, it is a different separate office from our office when it comes to setting up partnerships for that kind of funding. But we will be advocating on the legislative level separately. Thanks. Let me see.
And Julia, we had one back here.
There you are.
Who do you recommend going to help get new medications accessible / affordable for Medicare recipients?
Can you be a little more specific?
Yeah, sorry, this is a question from my mom. She's not here, but
Oh, sure.
there are coupons for a medication that we would like to try, and Medicare won't allow the coupons to be used, and they don't cover the medication. So who would I, start? Like, where do I start?
Sure. No, that's a good question. So it's pretty specific. When it comes to medication coverage, it is a very complicated system. So number one, I will encourage you, and this is for anybody in the room, it's MAT.org. It's the Medication Access, I forget the therapies.org. And that is something that has been put together by brand and generic pharmaceuticals to help flow questions like that. That's an excellent resource. Second is they are not allowed to deny the coupons. So what I would do is also call your representative and tell them that that's happening. And then also come back to the pharmaceutical company, the brand or the generic that you're looking to have covered, and see what else they can do when it comes to they have patient ombudsmen for coverage. When it comes to that, that is something we are starting to see as well, and it isn't an area yet that we have capacity to funnel that what I call direct consumer assistance yet when it comes to patient pharmaceuticals, but that's something that we are looking into, trying to figure out if we can create an office on this, because it's becoming more of an issue when newer drugs come out and they're not being covered right away. I hope that helps. It's not probably the best answer, but I'm hoping it can get you started. Thank you.
Okay, Julia, we have time for one last question.
Okay.
It's right here.
First, thank you.
Thank you.
Never believed I'd see hundreds of people on one subject, Parkinson's. A year ago, when my husband was getting lightheaded, falling, called 911, I would have never dreamed of this. It starts, I can imagine Michael J. Fox, a quarter century ago. I feel helpless. I was a successful actor, Back to the Future, and now this, and I'm alone. And that's with any condition. Our son with autism, a friend of mine with Dandy Walker, hydrocephalus, brain. I'm trying to fast forward. So when you're feeling alone, just figuring out how to find phone numbers, emails, etc., for the person you're supposed to contact. And that would be my question. Obviously, doing letters to the editor that won't be thrown in the trash, but will be published, help people all over being more aware. Does that sound like a crazy question?
Not at all. What's your name?
I'm sorry, Deb Stucklin, and my
Deb.
loving husband, Bob Stucklin, whose life I'd be very happy to help save, because 88 years old, but I love him very much.
Oh, Deb, thank you. Thank you so much. And you're right, sometimes it's not easy to find the information, but that's what PAR's here for. So anytime you feel alone and that you feel like you just can't find what you're looking for, that's why they're here. And then also at our foundation as well. And if it's something that PAR can't answer and they can kick it up to us, we're partners and we're always going to be partners. So I want you to know that you aren't alone in being able to find the information, and that is what we're all going to help with. Thank you all so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.